Count Sage Dynamics, and this is the Sig USA Spear LT. If you're thinking, hey, that kind of looks like a Sig MCX, you'd be right, but kind of wrong. This kind of the Gen 3 of the Sig MCX line, but they're calling it the Spear LT. It's a derivative of the Spear, which is the Squad Automatic Weapons Submission for the United States Army. This is kind of the civilian or commercial market version of that gun with some small variations, some small differences. Obviously, the big one right out of the bat is it's not a side charger. It is a traditional charging handle like we find on the MCX, and it shares a lot of commonality, with the MCX, but not enough for Sig to call it an MCX. They're calling it the Spear LT, and it comes in 3 calibers: 5.56, 7.62 by 39, and 300 blackout. Now, that's all theory as the filming of this video, because as we know from the Sig Gen 2 of the MCX line, there had been talk of caliber conversions for quite some time with that rifle, and they never really materialized. But Sig is pushing hard, touting the fact that caliber conversions are going to be readily available for this rifle as soon as possible. And I'm, for one, really looking forward to that, because I do like the Sig MCX just like I like the Sig MPX. But what makes the Spear LT not a Sig MCX? First things first, significant weight reduction. Features, as far as the lower receiver goes, we have a true ambidextrous receiver. And when I say true, it means that you can lock the bolt to the rear from the right side of the receiver and release it, which you got to be able to do that to have true. Obviously, the safety selector is kind of low-hanging fruit, and the magazine release as well. The big boys are able to do an ambi bolt release on an AR-style, AR-centric lower receiver that accepts now AR pattern triggers if you wanted to put one in there. But the trigger that comes, this match grade trigger that comes with the Spear LT, is pretty awesome. Very simplified piston system, gas piston system, as we had with the Spear, or I'm sorry, as we had with the MCX, and also powers the Spear. It's basically two position, plus gas, minus gas, which I kind of like. It's not as specific as it necessarily needs to be for certain suppressors, but during my 2,000 round review process, I only used Sig suppressors. In fact, only one Sig suppressor on the firearm. I felt like that'd be kind of fair considering it came with a Sig muzzle device, and I had a Sig can. If you're interested in my review of that particular suppressor, you can check it out on the Sage channel. I think we really have to take a minute and appreciate the fact that the rail is much improved, and the colors is just, it's kind of wonderful. It's like flat, dark earth butter cinnamon. I think that's what they should call it. If Yankee Candle made a scent called flat, dark earth cinnamon, I would probably buy it. That's something that should definitely be in Cracker Barrel. I'd be stoked about that. The M-LOK system, obviously I have a whole lot of rail space on this gun without the rail having a significant amount of weight to it. The one thing about MCXs, and I have the Gen 2 MCX in 11.5, and I had one for a little while in 16-inch, and it's very front heavy, as piston guns like to be. The piston system is going to exist inside that rail space, and it's going to add a little bit of weight to the gun. So in order to reduce the weight, you've got to go with a thinner profile of barrel or a thinner rail, and then you give up rigidity, and it just becomes this whole big thing. So obviously metallurgy is a factor, and engineering plays into the discussion of how much weight reduction can we possibly get away with without sacrificing accuracy as the gun heats up, or rail rigidity as people do more than shooting at paper on indoor ranges. As far as the controls go, my opinion, just getting into it, it's a downward motion. And I want to talk specifically about that bolt lock, bolt release. It's an upward motion to lock it to the rear. It's a downward motion to release it. You do have to, depending on your range of motion, break your grip a little bit. However, if you took off this mostly pointless safety selector on this side, I know some people love ambi selectors, and that's fine. I'm much more interested in ambi bolt catch and release, so I don't have to remove the controlling hand from the gun when clearing malfunctions or even doing reloads. Problematic reloads, I should say. That being said, you can still get up there without really compromising the shooting grip to release or to lock that bolt to the rear during the manipulation of the gun. Safety selector is kind of what you'd expect. The magazine release, very ample, larger. That's something we got on the other side that's going to be easy for someone to manipulate. On the inside, which is where a lot of people are going to be manipulating their bolt release, you can use a traditional paddle bolt release, or you can use, like I said, that ambi catch, ambi release. And your left hand or your left side magazine release is functional. It's not something that is an afterthought. And sometimes ambidextrous controls become afterthoughts in design, and this is certainly not the case, at least from my opinion, throughout the 2,000 rounds of using the Spear LT. For full disclosure, Sig sent me this rifle. So I want to make it very clear, as I have to, and I feel like ethically I should, just because people are watching this video. This is a review. They're not getting any favors for the rifle, especially considering I have to send it back. So I'm putting my time and ammunition through it to give you guys an honest opinion. My biggest concern going into it was going to be, and this is something I haven't seen a lot, but I have seen it. I've heard more about it than I've personally witnessed it, but I have witnessed it, is a significant difference in quality control when it comes to accuracy on the MCX system. That was one thing I was going to be worried about. I wasn't so much worried about the reliability, because I've run the hell out of my Gen 2 MCX and haven't really had any issues. It's an accurate gun, it's a reliable gun, it functions well in all the conditions I shoot it in, suppressed, unsuppressed, whatever. So my biggest concern with the Spear LT was going to be, are these new parts going to function correctly? Is everything going to work well? Is gas adjustments going to be there when I go from suppressed to unsuppressed? And am I going to get some good accuracy out of it? They sent me the 16-inch variant. I would have rather had the 11.5 because I'm more of an SBR kind of guy, but it feels good to run a 16-inch gun every now and then. So for the first 500 rounds, I was just kind of getting into a get-to-know-you phase, and that's when I noticed the first thing I don't really care for, and it's just maybe this specific gun, because I can change out stocks very easily on the Spear LT, just like I can with the MCX and the MPX. Sig sent along one of their Tango 6Ts, which is a really good 1:6 optic, one of my favorites. Again, I've done a video on that if you want to check it out. It's definitely one of my favorite, if not my favorite 1:6 that's out there. But they sent it like a 1.3 and change mount, which is entirely too low for this type of rifle. So I really got to get in there, Lollipop Guild style, to really get my head behind that optic in certain conditions or certain shooting positions. Didn't really care for that, and the length of pull I get from that skeletonized stock is problematic. So it was something I would definitely, and this again, it's not really a knock on the rifle itself, it's just kind of talking about how the skeletonized stocks, while they look cool, they do limit you a little bit with range of motion. You have to adjust your length of pull, and you can't. So you have to adjust your eye relief. And then you get into the question of what's the optimal position for the scope for the most positions you're going to shoot it in, because on a small length of pull like that, for somebody my size, it's going to be problematic. For other people, it might not be a big deal. One thing I do like about the new skeletonized stock that comes on the Spear LT is it does have a little bit of cheek riser, probably not quite enough, but it does give you a little bump. Previously, I've seen guys use, gaffer's tape, or they'd wrapped it in like ace bandage and then put tape around that, or 550 cord or something like that. All those things work great, but it'd be much better if the stock was just a little bit more comfortable for shooting. So if I was going to have a complaint in that first 500 rounds, it's going to be the skeletonized stock. But again, super easy changeable, and they are backwards compatible with previous generation stocks from Sig, so you can just throw in one of those, which is probably what I would be doing. After that first 500 rounds, it brought us to the burn down, which is 500 rounds as quickly as possible, to see if the accelerated rate of fire would identify any issues that we wouldn't notice with the same round count over a much longer period of time. So 5 to 6 minutes versus 5 to 6 hours, days, weeks, months, years. You know, the same old boilerplate I say every time I talk about the burn down. Here is your 500 round burn down. I gotta say, it is pleasant to do a burn down on a 16-inch gun. They do, the heat doesn't seem to collect as close to me as it does on SBRs and AR pistols and things like that. 500 rounds, first to last round, absolutely no issues whatsoever. I wasn't really expecting any, but it's nice to see. As far as accuracy goes, usually when I do a burn down, I'm shooting at a 7-yard target. Sometimes I'll put another target out a little bit further, maybe 25, and I've always got steel, well, not always, most of the time I've got steel plates available to do a quick accuracy check right after I finish the burn down. Didn't really see a significant difference in accuracy as far as being able to hit a C-size steel. However, after 500 rounds, which is well and away in an unrealistic amount of rounds in that sort of period of time, there probably would have been some loosening of groups, so I would never hold the rifle accountable for being able to shoot its cold bore accuracy once it's been fired for 500 rounds. And we'll talk more about the accuracy later anyway. But as far as functionality, everything worked as it should. So the burn down was a big success. For the next 500 rounds, I shot it suppressed and only suppressed using one of Sig's wonderful suppressors. Because I have that K-length suppressor, it was nice to be able to throw that on there, and it doesn't make the 16-inch gun too unwieldy. Similar, like something I've had to deal with in the past, running a 13.7 with like a 6 or 7-inch suppressor. Very similar maneuverability issues there. And because I've got a 16-inch barrel pushing that report at the ear a little further away from me, the tone was good. This is where we get into the good and the bad of two-position gas adjustments. If you've only got two choices, what if neither of them are really great? I did not experience any suppressor-related malfunctions, but as you guys can see on the video, and some of this has to deal with the ammunition that's being fired, and some of it has to deal with the magazine that's feeding, but a lot of the times, my brass ejection wasn't that textbook 3 o'clock, which a lot of people are going to look for, and I'm sure somebody was already furiously typing about, and now I'm mentioning it, and hopefully they didn't finish commenting before we got to this part. So we're not getting that textbook pin chewing, hand wringing brass ejection that so many people are looking for. Brass ejection is a possible symptom of improper carrier speed, improper gassing, but it's kind of more relegated to direct impingement guns. When it comes to piston guns, yes, carrier speed is carrier speed, but in my experience shooting both short and long stroke piston guns, 3 o'clock, an ideal 3 o'clock brass ejection is ideal. It is on both operating systems, but it seems to be more of an issue for the DI guns. It seems to be more of a diagnostic for DI guns than it does for piston guns. That doesn't mean if a piston gun is slinging brass straight to the front or directly to the rear, there's nothing wrong with the gun. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is the piston guns are a little bit less finicky with their gas management than DI guns are. So it is a little unfair to compare the two systems based on brass ejection alone and expect the same results. That being said, it would be nice if the Spear LT included a third or a fourth gas position setting, because there's so many different types of suppressors out there. Traditional suppressors, be they monocore or baffle stack, are going to have a different higher pressure, potentially higher pressure gas relationship. Even the lower pressure cans are still higher pressure than our flow-through type cans, or the newer style of suppressors that manage gas in dramatically different ways, pushing most of the gas out the front of the suppressor as they do with the muzzle report, which is the type of suppressor that I was using during this review. I didn't shoot it with a traditional or a legacy type of suppressor like a Surefire SB2 or anything like that, or a dead air or whatever. So maybe if I used a traditional style suppressor, the ejection pattern probably would be different in some way, but I can't speak to during these 2,000 round reviews how it would be. I just wanted to bring that up because I know people are going to comment on it in the video. It was definitely something that I did notice. However, it didn't cause any malfunctions with the gun. It would be something that I'd want to pay attention to. And of course, Sig's not going to watch this video and take just my advice, be like, oh yeah, let's go ahead and stop the assembly line right now and throw in a third and a fourth gas setting. Maybe that's something the secondary market can take care of, or maybe it's a rolling change that Sig can make in the future. But I'm sure Sig has done way more rounds for this rifle than I have, and they're probably aware that on certain suppressors, the brass does different things. And I think that's going to be true of most rifles, especially piston guns, when we talk about different types of suppressors. But it would be nice to have at least a third option for a gas position setting. How's the accuracy? I know that's going to be a big question. Well, I shot 77 grain IMI, their boat tail hollow point, and 5.56. I use that for my accuracy check. I usually use Black Hills or Atlanta Arms AMU 77 grain TMK. I can't get either of those right now, as of I got 1,000 rounds on the way, but I wanted to go ahead and knock the filming out on this as quickly as possible. So I just used my IMI 77, which is a really good round. And I shot a 5-round group at the 0 distance. So this group was recorded right after zeroing the gun. This is a 5-round group of confirmation, shooting that round at 100 yards using the Sig Tango 6T. I don't know if you'd call this rifle rat grade or whatever, but that's pretty respectable accuracy. 100-yard group on some IMI razor. And again, if I'd shot 77 grain Black Hills OTM or the Atlanta Arms, and I know for a fact the Atlanta Arms 77 grain TMK would be more accurate than an IMI, in literally fractions of an MOA. However, more accurate is more accurate, however you cut it. I'm still very impressed with that accuracy. Again, it's a 16-inch gun, but accuracy isn't all about barrel length anyway. But this is a rat grade rifle. You know, some people may be like, well, you know, Sig probably cherry picked that. I'm like, I don't think so. I think if they were going to cherry pick a rifle, they would have sent me something that shot super sub MOA. That's just my opinion. For 2,000 rounds shooting in the very conditions that were available to me, suppressed, unsuppressed, the gun was accurate, the gun was reliable. My final thoughts on it: the recoil pulse is kind of what you'd expect from a short stroke gas piston, especially using that skeletonized stock, and you guys can see it on kind of some of the slow-mo. It's got a little bit of kick to it. Again, I'm running a flash hider in most of those shots, but when suppressed using the Sig suppressor, the recoil pulse doesn't really soften out as much as I would like it to. That being said, I've shot much more jarring guns. So it's something that I can definitely live with, and honestly, if I swap that stock out for more of a traditional buffer tube adjustable, like a CTR or something like that, or even go with a B5 or a SOP mod, I think getting a little bit more cheek weld into that gun, a little bit more purchase on it, would definitely help smooth that out, because some of it is obviously what I'm able to mount and how I'm able to get that stock into my shoulder, or up into my the notch, as we call it, put the toe where it needs to go. That being said, the recoil pulse is something that's going to be a little bit different than what you may be used to, but it is tunable to a certain degree based on suppressor and gas setting and ammunition. It's not something that really kept me off the target. This is a very fast gun. You can still shoot it incredibly fast, incredibly accurate. You can run it just like you would an AR. I like the improvements over the Gen 2 MCX, not so much to just go ahead and sell my MCXs, because they're still good guns, although they are a little front heavy. That being said, I am definitely going to be buying an 11.5-inch version of this gun as soon as possible, a 300 Blackout 9-inch version of this gun as soon as possible, and I will probably pick up the 7.62x39, because I'm still looking for a reliable 7.62x39 AR type centric gun, because I'm just not much of an AK guy. Nothing against them, just not my flavor. This is a cool gun, and I'm praying that Sig comes through and is actually able to get these guns out there, because the problem with the Sig MCX Gen 2, especially as you guys know, was availability. They were hard to find for various reasons, I'm sure, but it's hard to say we sell this and then it not be available. So I'm really hoping that's not going to be a problem with the Spear LT. And furthermore, hopefully it's not going to be a problem availability with the caliber conversions or the other specific calibers besides 5.56. Hopefully by the time you see this video, everybody's like, dude, what are you talking about? These things are everywhere. We can't get enough of them. Or we have too many of them, or whatever you want to say. And I really hope that's the case. But if you're interested in my opinion of the Spear LT, I think this is a great gun. It is definitely a good alternative to the AR system if you're interested in it. Is this something you need to throw your ARs out the window and just go with this? No, absolutely not. But if you want an alternate rifle that's going to be a little bit more suppressor friendly, you can fire from a folded stock position without needing any additional attachments, and is a really good short stroke piston system, get the Spear LT. I'm Eric with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.